Ivan Nappin,
And I'm Teddy Nappin.
and welcome to Gun Lawyer. So, we've been following the events in Minnesota, and I'm sure you have as well. And, this is troubling, but it's created quite an interesting political situation. And it's kind of strange to see sides shifting, yet it appears that this may, in fact, be a political opportunity to help the Second Amendment get strengthened. Let me tell you where I'm going with this, and take a look here at the Firearm Policy Coalition's recent statement. I don't know if you're familiar with the FPC, but they do a lot of great work in litigating through the court system Second Amendment challenges. And as a national group, they do good work. And they put out a statement that I thought was very interesting, and it'll lay the groundwork as we get a little bit more into depth about where I see some potential here that should be taken, frankly, advantage of in this interesting moment in time. So what the FPC wrote in their statement is, recent events in Minnesota underscore a recurring and deeply troubling theme: government officials and commentators treating natural rights as privileges. Now, that's an important statement right there about treating rights as privileges. As they mention in the article, the Second Amendment, like the First and Fourth, are merely codification of pre-existing rights. They don't create the rights. The Supreme Court has long recognized that the right to keep and bear arms is not a right granted by the Constitution. The Constitution simply is a guarantee of those rights and puts limits on government, not the people. That's why if someone ever asks you, what rights are you given by the Constitution, the answer is none, because those rights pre-exist the Constitution. The Constitution is there as a guarantor, guaranteeing those rights against the government, okay? And it puts limits on the government to ensure that our rights stay respected. It doesn't grant us rights. Only God granted us our rights, or natural law has granted those rights, fundamental natural laws. That's what we're talking about when it comes to actual rights. So this gets distorted politically by politicians who apparently seem to forget that. And here we end up in Minnesota, where this individual, Pretti, came to this protest with a gun. And the FPC points out that the mere presence of a firearm does not erase a person's rights. It doesn't turn lawful conduct into wrongdoing. It does not make someone fair game to be arrested or killed for the government's convenience. The government does not get to flip the legal or moral burden. The fact that one is armed is not a license for the government to shoot you, nor is a right to bear arms a license for any person to use unjust force. And that is very strong and very true. And this is where this situation now, where Pretti ended up getting shot and killed by ICE for essentially bringing his gun to the protest. And there's a lot of dispute now, over whether he used it, drew it, whether he was being disarmed, whether there was, all that's out there. But my point isn't whether Pretti, as a matter of fact, I don't even support Pretti's political view here, okay? I'm all for ICE. I don't want to see our country with illegal immigrants, okay? But that's my view, that's my opinion, okay, that's fine. And Pretti had his, but he has a First Amendment right, and he has a Second Amendment right. And the problem is the reaction to the exercise of his Second Amendment right. And when you take a look at what happened here, it's somewhat disturbing that those folks that are supposed to be understanding what Second Amendment means take an anti-Second Amendment group's view. So Politico had an article. It's gun rights group blasts Trump over Minnesota response. And in fact, they did. And let me show you what has happened where the tables and the issue has turned here. And it's very interesting because I think it presents opportunity that we'll get to in a moment. So, for example, this is right from the Politico article. FBI Director Kash Patel said Sunday on Fox News, quote, "You cannot bring a firearm loaded with multiple magazines to any sort of protest that you want. It's that simple. You don't have a right to break the law." DHS Secretary Kristi Noem said Saturday that she didn't, quote, "know of any peaceful protester that shows up with a gun and ammunition rather than a sign." And the White House press secretary, Karen Leavitt, said Monday that any gun owner knows, end quote, that carrying a gun, quote, raises the assumption of risk and the risk of force being used against you during interactions with law enforcement. I mean, come on, what the hell is with these people? They are feeding into the Second Amendment oppressionists with this stuff. So, gun rights group pushed back, and a number of them were particularly enraged by Bill Esseley, okay? He's the acting U.S. attorney for Central District of California who posted, if you approach law enforcement with a gun, there is a high likelihood they will be legally justified in shooting you. What the F is he saying? Like, are you kidding me? If you approach law enforcement with a gun, there's a high likelihood they'll be legally justified in shooting you. The NRA, okay? The NRA said that Esseley's remarks were dangerous and wrong and called for a full investigation instead of making generalizations and demonizing law-abiding citizens. That's the NRA folks saying that now, okay? To this character, Aiden Johnson, Director of Federal Affairs for Gun Owners of America, called Esseley's remarks absolutely unacceptable. That's GOA, okay? I mean, listen to this quote. Federal prosecutors should know better than to comment on a situation when they didn't know all the facts, to make a judgment in a case like this, and then also to make a blanket statement threatening gun owners in that way. And Johnson is absolutely right. It's outrageous.
Also,
and yet, yeah.
I will say, just taking a step back and looking at what they've kind of just put out as their reaction, like you brought a gun and all the other, and there's stupid comments. What they could have said, which would have been a very easy play, is the Second Amendment isn't your right to attack law enforcement officers. All right? It has nothing to do with the carry. It had to do with the fact that it is agitators obstructing and attacking ICE.
Right.
That would have been the very easy statement, but
they
no,
focused
they just
on the action and not the carry. But instead, they focused on, oh, you come up to a law officer with a gun, they're legally justified in shooting you. No, they're not. They're not. Unless you're going to use it wrongly, okay? We can all, and then, so the Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus, Sky Strasser, he said, we can all see on the video what happened, and he's not on the side of what the Trump administration is putting out. Matter of fact, it says, you look at an analysis done by the Washington Post, federal agents appear to have secured Pretti's gun moments before an agent shot
so
Pretti.
just to break it down a
Yeah.
little more from that, which they're ignoring, which I love the mainstream media loves to ignore. They take away the first 30 seconds where it's him getting into it with the officers, where they're blocking traffic, where he'd been doing that all day. And the woman was also blocking traffic. The officer shoves her out of the way because they're blocking traffic, obstruction, crime. And then he tries to be the white knight, gets in it with the officer. They're trying to pin him down to arrest him. He's still fighting. He's still fighting. One of the guys sees gun, yells gun. He pulls the gun away. And during, it's like I didn't know the timing of that. It's like only a second or so split. And you hear them shout gun, and the guy draws his pistol and he fires because it's a split second, which I think there is a Supreme Court case where you have to look at it from the officer's perspective. From
And
that, where
and
is
I
at
can
risk.
understand the that, but what is disturbing is the key administration officials focusing on guns and gun owners and carry instead of on the behavior of this person, which arguably is the real issue and is what is the problem, not having the gun. And then you combine that with, for example, Gavin Newsom, who, let's face it, he's a Second Amendment oppressionist, right? I mean, he is, but what does he say? He says, quote, the Trump administration doesn't believe in the Second Amendment. Good to know. So, okay, granted, he's an opportunist here, but he's actually seeing, even though we don't believe he's sincere, of course, but who knows, he's seeing the what's wrong with what they're saying. Even Newsom sees what's wrong with their saying and then takes advantage of it in that way. Look, Representative Dave Min and Mary Petola, so one is Democrat from California and Democrat from Alaska, this is from the Politico article, they also used a moment to highlight the right to carry. And here's their quote, ready? Joining the gun lobby to condemn Bill Esseley was not on my bingo card, but here we are. Min said on X, lawfully carrying a firearm is not grounds for being killed. So there, look at that. A Democrat saying that. Yeah. Newsom even pointing out the hypocrisy of it. And here we have them really taking a terrible view of gun owners and carry. And if you step back from all this, I see political opportunity. And I'll tell you why. Because what I think would be very, very good would be to propose what we would call Pretti's Law. It would be a pretty law. And what Pretti's Law would do would be to create a federal preemptive right to carry in public. Going directly at the legal issue, by the way, in the Wolford case, the so-called vampire rule, and other forms of public carry, we need a federal law that preempts any state from putting forward so-called sensitive place laws that interfere with the right to carry that the left has acknowledged. The left is acknowledging in their defense of Pretti. And this presents an opportunity to tie in with that national reciprocity so that you have your right to keep and bear arms respected, and we push this with the Pretti situation. In other words, why is it the left always gets to take the situation and turn it to their advantage? Well, this is an opportunity for us to use this situation to our advantage, because you can see from what we just discussed that the left is putting out that message. The left is putting out the pro-Second Amendment message. The left is seeing that carry was a right, that carry was fine for this, believe it or not, white male to be carrying, right? I mean, we should all be in shock that the left is defending armed white males. Wow. But here they are. So instead of letting this moment pass, let's grab onto it. Let's get a federal law that can go at and preempt wiping out sensitive place restrictions and getting through national reciprocity. We can do both of those things in this bill because that is a solid focus federally on carry. And that's what we're talking about here, and that's what this situation highlights. And now's a chance to do federal protection of our carry rights. And it's also a chance for Trump administration to make clear their position in support of it as well. Here's the common ground, folks. Here's the common ground that this demonstrated.
Also,
I hope that someone takes advantage of it.
Also, just taking a step back on the whole situation here, the one good thing about this administration that everyone can agree on is that they listen. The one thing that anyone can just stop and say, like, you can have disagreements in different things, but they listen. They hear what the issue is. And I get the sense that Kristi Noem and Kash Patel are not it never had the two-way mindset. They never had that. You know, people always say, oh, I'm for the Second Amendment. What does that mean? What do they actually believe and stand for that? And I think this is a moment for them to realize and learn what that actually stands for us, for what that means for us ability to carry and defend ourselves. Where we don't have security teams. We don't have, the full backing of the U.S. government to protect us every single day. So I think this is a chance for the administration to learn. And heck, they should appoint a gun czar, a 2A czar, someone to advise them on these issues. If they don't know, don't just go to X or Truth and post it. Ask and learn, and then you can be more informed on the issue.
That's a great idea, Teddy. It would be really good for them to do it, and I'd be happy to have that role.
Nice. Wow.
Yep.
Oh, man.
Yep, that's good. Well,
yeah, that you say all right, and then also legalize all machine guns. We're closing down the ATF. Here's a lot of recommendations.
I got them, but here is one where politically we are seeing the other side actually seeing it our way, and that's an opportunity that we shouldn't lose. And that's the point of this.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you about our friends at We Shoot. We Shoot is a range in Lakewood, indoor range, where both Teddy and I shoot, and we love it there. We Shoot is conveniently located right off the Parkway, and they have some cool specials I want to tell you about. They have a Smith M&P 9 2.0 compact, ready to roll. They have that, and they're also offering the M&P 9 2.0 in metal, so you can have your choice in metal or polymer. They have the Vortex Triumph, which is an all-new optic, right? It's pretty cool. Vortex makes some good stuff. I have some Vortex on my guns. They also have the Ross Martin RM1C, which is a striker-fired compact pistol that is really taking the gun world by storm. You should check out their Ross Martin. Really good gun. And, of course, you want to check out the We Shoot Girls there. And they're featuring a number of folks, including Christina Vernicola. And go to their website. Go to WeShootUSA.com. You can see all these wonderful guns and models posing with wonderful guns, and you will be glad that you went to look at all of that. I'm sure of it. And then make sure you check out We Shoot. Go down to the range there. You can get some fantastic training. They have a great pro shop. right there in Lakewood, New Jersey at WeShootUSA.com. And also, I want to mention our friends at the Association of New Jersey Rifle and Pistol Clubs. They've been quite busy fighting in the courts and in the legislature in Trenton. Murphy's gone, and we did get some new laws, of course, that this is a very tough environment. But they also were able to get some changes that are critical. And I was glad to see modifications, although completely stopping when the folks have all the power. It's tough, but they made a big difference. And we are thankful because without the Association, New Jersey Rifle and Pistol Clubs, we'd have no unified voice of umbrella organization of our clubs and organizations, and you need to be a member of associations. So go to anjrpc.org, join today. You'll get all the news letters it's the best newsletter in the state on guns. You'll see the email alerts. You'll know everything that's going on when it comes to our gun rights in New Jersey. anjrpc.org. And this is also when I shamelessly promote my book, which is New Jersey Gun Law, the Bible of New Jersey gun law. It's over 500 pages, 120 topics, all question and answer. It's your guidebook to not becoming a go-foo in New Jersey. And man, let me tell you, so many times people call me and it's after the fact. I'm like, if they had only read my book. Oy vey. But we'll still fight and defend, but it would have been a lot better if you never had the problem to begin with, and most of my clients would agree with that, I'm afraid. So get your copy of your book today. Go to evannappen.com, and get your copy of New Jersey Gun Law. And at this moment, we have Teddy, who's going to tell us about press checks. What do you got for us, Teddy?
Well, as you know, press checks are always free. And one of the things I'm always astounded by on the left, because they try to act like they have knowledge and understanding of guns. Like, we know of course, the closeted hopalosexuals like Sugarman, who actually do know guns, but the vast majority of them do not know guns. I always think back, Dad, to your, what was the quote-unquote firearms expert, fixed ammunition.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Yeah,
oh.
I always think to that.
Experts testifying under oath that are just flat out lying. Flat out lying.
So,
yeah.
And here is their new term that they're trying to push, as I always believe in going to the gun rights suppressors and see what's their latest message. What are they pushing for? And the new term that they have invented, safeguarding. That's their new push. This comes out of the Trace, everyone's favorite gun rights suppressor organization, by Farhan Maggie, safeguarding, where violence prevention groups and researchers have spent years working on initiatives to get firearms out of the hands of people who may pose a danger to themselves or others. Through extreme risk protection laws, known as red flag. Oh, yes. So they've been getting so much flack about the legalized swatting that they have created, that they've been pushing through these insane red flag laws. So I love while these laws have bipartisan support, from a bunch of rhinos that are anti-gun and don't believe in Second Amendment rights, but now the Second Amendment groups have launched a concerted attack on red flag laws in the court system. Gee, I wonder why.
No due process.
Yeah, no due process. You get labeled terrible. and robbed, and your firearms stolen, and your rights and your life destroyed. Other than that, so in this supercharged political climate, what are the other options? Well, we have it for you. safeguarding the process of temporarily taking control of someone else's guns for if they have risk of suicide or harming someone else without involving the criminal justice system. So what does that mean? That means, okay, if you think your friend may want to hurt themselves or hurt others, just simply say, hey, man, why don't I take your guns? Let me just keep them in my house. I think you're going through a rough patch. I'm going to take your guns. And these ideas somewhat analogous with laws that allow people to temporarily ban themselves from buying guns. So, Dad, I'm pretty sure they just advocated for someone to commit a crime in New Jersey.
Yes, in New Jersey, that would be absolutely unlawful because of the other anti-gun laws that they help push, such as universal background check. So how do you temporarily give guns to somebody when there's no transfer of guns allowed unless you go through a dealer and go through the permitting system and go through the entire process? You can't just say to your buddy in New Jersey, hey, let me just take your guns. No, can't do it. It's got to go through a dealer. You got to do all the paperwork, the NICS check, the whole bit. So good luck with that. Good luck with that. Because if you listen to what they are telling you to do, you will be committing a felony level offense, multiple felony level offenses in New Jersey. There's no temporary transfer. This is, in fact, officially this week's go-foo, Teddy. As far as I'm concerned, that's the go-foo. Do not ever temporarily give your guns to somebody else in New Jersey, except under two very narrow circumstances. If you're at the range, there is a law in Jersey that allows you, while the person's in your presence, to let them try your gun at the range. Or if you're hunting and everybody's legal and licensed and they're there in your presence while hunting, that's it. But that's it. That's the only temporary transfers allowed to adults legally. There is no provision in New Jersey that allows you to temporarily transfer your firearms or to take somebody else's firearms temporarily because somebody might want to harm themselves, or you perceive that they're thinking about harming themselves, or they tell you, hey, I'm thinking about harming myself, or I just feel better if you had my gun again. None of that flies in Jersey. None of it. It is completely a violation of New Jersey gun laws and a violation of many of the laws that the gun rights oppressors have pushed to put in place in Jersey. The reason you cannot do what they're suggesting in Jersey is because of their anti-Second Amendment gun laws themselves. So they pass and force the passage of these laws through their fellow comrades in the legislature and then give advice on how to violate the very laws because they're so clueless as to what they are doing in terms of the actual effect it has on real people and the real situation.
So, and I love how they end this article too, where they get this expert because they always lean on the logical fallacy of, oh, I'm an expert, so trust me on this. Where this Catherine Barber out of the Harvard Injury Control Research Center, gee, that doesn't sound biased. She makes this long-winded argument, making it so it sounds like if you're a gun owner, oh, you're mentally ill. Even though gun owners are more than twice at the risk of non-gun owners from taking their own lives. And they equated where we should treat red flag like suicide prevention. Just this long-winded expression trying to make it seem like, oh, that's right. If you own a gun, you probably have mental illness. That is the level of disgusting nature that these people are. Well, that they try to argue that.
Right. So this person's saying if you own a gun, you're mentally ill. And yet we have these administration folks and this U.S. attorney saying, essentially, if you have a gun, you're a threat immediately to law enforcement. I mean, they're just making these assumptions on both sides that are just strictly out of bounds when we're talking about a constitutional right. A constitutional right. I mean, just make believe it's the First Amendment instead of the Second Amendment. Anyone that freely speaks their mind is mentally ill. Anybody who freely talks to police is justified in being shot. And that doesn't, neither of those statements make any sense, right? Well,
And
we're talking Second Amendment. That's a constitutional right. It's not a second-class right either, just like the First Amendment is a right. And this right is supposed to be guaranteed by government, guaranteed by the government, not given by the government. It needs to get respected and put in the proper perspective of being treated as a right. It's not a mental illness. It's not a threat to law enforcement, intrinsically a threat. This all is based on the individual's behavior. That's the point, and that's what the focus has to be on, but yet it's so easy to just look at it as a symbol, the symbol. Americans always had this thing about going after the symbols. I mean, why were switchblades banned in the 50s? Well, they were the symbol of juvenile delinquency, right? I mean, why were machine guns banned in the symbol? It was symbolism of not. It's just this constant moral crusade by picking an item to go after. We need to look at actions of people. What is not malum prohibitums, where a legislative body just decides this should be banned or that should be banned, but instead we focus on the malum and say things that are wrong within themselves. And those things are the actions and wrongdoings by people. That's where our laws have to focus.
I think it's definitely needs to be a wake-up call because, look, I understand, and hopefully we do get common ground. And if, you know what, Pretty's law comes into play and we get enough the Democrats to jump on because they want to, look like they're 2A affiliates or whatever, which, by the way, anytime you hear the news, the CNN, MSNBC use the words 2A or democracy, you look at the little end, it'll say TM, trademark. It's their version of the Second Amendment, their version of democracy. That is what they always argue. It's rules for thee, not for me. That is how the left operate. So just remember that every time they're trying to coax the right against the administration.
The Pretty's law will have an interesting effect because it'll put the left on the spot on the vote. Do you support being able to carry a firearm in public as the way he did, where you're claiming to? Well, now you're going to have to put your money where your mouth is, so to speak. You're going to have to vote. You better vote.
I think
then the question gets made to the other side. Do you support Second Amendment or not? So this is why politically it's an opportunity.
I think we joked that Trump should come out against Kerry, which would force the left to then pass.
Right.
I think we joked about that exact thing.
We're getting there. You're right, Teddy.
We joked about that exact thing.
We're getting there to that. That's a good point.
You should come out against machine guns.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, okay. Because next thing you know, you got Newsom putting out, and Democrat Congress persons putting out pro-gun statements, pro-Second Amendment statements. I mean, that's why it's opportunity time. And hopefully someone will take advantage of it. Well, this is Evan Nappen and Teddy Nappen reminding you that gun laws don't protect honest citizens from criminals. They protect criminals from honest citizens.
Gun Lawyer is a Counterthink media production. The music used in this broadcast was managed by Cosmo Music, New York, New York. Reach us by emailing evan@gun.lawyer. The information and opinions in this broadcast do not constitute legal advice. Consult a licensed attorney in your state.